Okay, let's talk about the news that just completely rocked the world of football. Xabi Alonso, club legend, the guy who just worked miracles at Bayer Leverkusen, gets sacked by Real Madrid. And he wasn't even there a full year. I mean, the team's only 4 points off the top of La Liga and sitting pretty in the Champions League quarterfinals. So you have to ask, what on earth is going on? Well, the answer isn't really about the scoreboard. This is a story about power, about massive egos, and about the unwritten rules at the most demanding club on the planet. And get this, Xabi Alonso is the 10th. That's right, number 10. The 10th permanent manager Florentino Pérez has fired without them even finishing one full year. I mean, at this point, that's not just a pattern, it's the official playbook. So, why him? Why now? What was the final straw? Was it just a couple of bad results? Did he have a falling out with the team's superstars? Or was there something much, much bigger happening behind the curtain? Well, we're going to dig into it and piece together what really happened. So, our investigation really has to start in the dressing room. That's where you see the first cracks starting to show. The first real charges against Alonso, they weren't about his tactics or the scores. Nope, it was all about how he handled the club's biggest names. Okay, picture this. It's October. Real Madrid just beat Barcelona in the Clásico. This should be a massive celebration, right? A huge moment of triumph. But instead, all anyone's talking about is how Alonso subbed off Vinícius Júnior and how the Brazilian star had a complete and total public meltdown because of it.
He was screaming it, right there on the sideline for all the cameras and microphones to pick up. Now, to get why this was so bad, you gotta understand the politics. President Pérez is bending over backwards trying to get Vinicius to sign a new contract. So for him to see a star player, his biggest asset, publicly shredding the manager's authority, even after a win, that did some serious, irreparable damage. The president protects his investments, and in that moment, Xabi Alonso started to look like a liability.
But, it didn't stop there. Fast forward to the Supercopa final. Madrid loses to Barcelona. Afterwards, Alonso makes a pretty simple request to his players: form a guard of honor for the winners. It's a totally standard gesture of sportsmanship. What happened next, though, was anything but standard. Kylian Mbappé, the biggest name on the team, just flat out refused. In front of the entire squad, he completely overruled his own manager. He basically gestured like, no, I have the final say here. And what did the team do? They followed their star player, not their coach. The guard of honor never happened. The imagery of that moment, it was just undeniable and absolutely damning. It showed everyone that Xabi Alonso had lost control of his own dressing room. Now, disputes with players might not have been enough to get him fired on their own. No, Alonso's fate was truly sealed when he committed the one, single, unforgivable sin in the Real Madrid manager's handbook. And it all comes down to this. At Real Madrid, you can drop some points in the league. You can even have a shaky performance in a cup game. But what you absolutely, positively cannot do, under any circumstances, is lose a final to Barcelona. For the president, Florentino Pérez, watching Barcelona lift a trophy that should have been his, well, that's the ultimate capital offense. So even with a decent league position, that loss was the final nail in the coffin. And here's the truly wild part: the media didn't see this coming at all. The pro-Madrid press, the ones who were usually sharpening their knives, they were actually supportive of Alonso. You saw headlines like, "Nothing to reproach you over." One columnist even wrote that Alonso had somehow saved his situation with the team's performance. And that tells you everything. This decision wasn't about public pressure. It was made by one man and one man only. And all of this, it leads us to the real person in charge, the power broker. Because if you really want to understand why Xabi Alonso was sacked, you have to understand the one man whose opinion is the only one that actually matters: President Florentino Pérez. Just think about it for a second. Xabi Alonso has been an icon his entire career. A World Cup winner, a Champions League hero, the man is a living legend. He's not used to having to manage up, or play the political games you have to play. But at Real Madrid, under this president, that's not a strength, it's a fatal flaw. This comparison right here, it pretty much tells the whole story. Alonso's job is simple: win games this season. But Pérez, who's now 78 years old, he's playing an entirely different game. He is laser focused on his legacy. Going down in history as the greatest president the club has ever had. He just doesn't have time to waste on a coach who isn't immediately delivering on that huge, grand vision. And this is that vision. It's pretty straightforward, really. More Champions League trophies, way fewer photos of Barcelona celebrating, getting a European Super League off the ground. For Pérez, the clock is ticking to get all this done. So anyone or anything that looks like an obstacle, like say a manager who loses a final to Barca and can't control his star players, well, they are simply removed from the equation.
So after looking at all the evidence, the player blow-ups, the forbidden loss, the president's agenda, what's the final verdict here on the sacking of Xabi Alonso? Well, it turns out it's not so simple.
I think this quote from ESPN's Graham Hunter just hits the nail right on the head. Sacking the coach, that was the easy way out. It was a move that blamed the wrong guy and let them completely ignore the much bigger, deeper problems at the club. Problems like out-of-control player power and a president whose personal legacy project is more important than anything else. The flaws that got us here, they haven't been fixed. Firing Alonso just papered over the cracks.
And that leaves us with one last big question, doesn't it? Okay, so Alonso is gone, but the real issues, the ones that actually got him fired, they're all still there. The president's impatience isn't going anywhere, the power of the star players isn't going anywhere. So as that famous revolving door at the Bernabéu just keeps on spinning, you really have to wonder, who's next?